What is going on, everybody? Welcome here to the Purple and Gold podcast. Today, we are going to be doing our 2025 Minnesota Vikings 7-round mock draft. I have waited and waited to do this mock draft video because I didn't want to do, version 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. No. We are going to get one swing at this, just like how all 32 teams are. This is it. My one and only edition of a 2025 mock draft for the Minnesota Vikings. So, before we do anything in terms of selecting players or potentially doing trades, which, spoiler alert, it's going to happen because we're not rocking with 4 picks. We need more than that. Especially in this draft, it's one of the rare cases where quantity might actually be better than quality in a sense, because the quality, at least at the top of the draft, isn't as coveted as drafts previously. I mean, even last year, you look at last year, a lot of these guys who are in this draft that are going in the first round might be second rounders because of how much top end talent there was in last year's draft. But let's not get too off topic here. First, let's take a look at this depth chart here. We'll go position by position. JJ McCarthy, we know, is QB1 for the Vikings, but they don't have another quarterback listed after that, despite Brett Rippon being on the roster. And me personally, I don't feel comfortable with Brett Rippon being the backup quarterback of this team, so I would like to get a quarterback in this draft, considering that all of the quarterbacks that were, in contention of being signed, Joe Flacco, Daniel Jones, and a couple other names, like those guys signed deals that were north of $10 million, which was surprising to me, but that's just not something that the Vikings can financially sustain with the amount of players that they've already paid this offseason. So I think coming in, drafting a guy later, that might be the way to go. Taking a look at the running back spot. Now, despite trading for Jordan Mason and re-signing Aaron Jones, I think that there is definitely a spot on this roster to draft another running back, potentially a running back of the future, not some guy like Ty Chandler, who is primarily going to be playing a backup role. I think you could draft a guy later in this draft to be one of the featured guys in the backfield after Aaron Jones leaves. So we are not leaving that off the table. There is certainly room, like I said, despite trading for Jordan Mason, to get ourselves another running back, because at this point, it doesn't sound like Ty Chandler should make the team. And I think that is all just depending on whether the Vikings do add another running back in the draft or not. But we'll see. Receiver room, Jefferson, Addison, best 1-2 punch in the league. But we could upgrade at wide receiver 3. I think that's why they went out and got Rondale Moore. I think we just wanted to see more out of Jalen Naylor. Just wasn't consistently catching the football and wasn't creating separation on his own. But don't get me wrong, came up with a handful of big plays last year. I think if we can get a good wide receiver 3 in this draft, like we're talking about in the first 2 days of the draft, I think that's where you feel comfortable. But if you're going to just draft another guy in day 3, I wouldn't expect him to come in and be a day 1 starter. But again, there's a lot of assumptions we can make. There's a lot of mock drafts that I've already done, drafting for all 32 teams off of camera. It's possible that guys fall, but again, just leaving all options on the table. We need a third tight end. I was surprised they didn't bring back Johnny Munt, because O'Connell has said in the past, hey, this is the best tight end 3 in the league, and I don't think he got paid that much. So we do need a tight end 3. That's going to be somewhere to look at in a position that has quite a bit of depth this year. And then along the offensive line, Justin School will be penciled in as that starting tackle to begin the season. But looking at it with the projected starters, if everyone is healthy, and we're really just referring to Darisaw here, this is a great O-line. And I think Brendel is the only guy that we could really replace and that we should be looking to replace. And if you guys have seen any of the videos on my channel before, you guys know how much of an emphasis I make on the trenches. And I've been saying it for as long as I've been a fan of this team. Like, the trenches is where you're going to give yourself the best chance to win, aside from the quarterback position, obviously. But Brendel, there's just a lot that was left on the table last year and didn't finish off the season particularly strong. So again, this guy was given a trial run last year, and I think he played how we expected him to. Just an average guard. And we're looking for better play than that, right? I mean, we've gone this far to build the offensive line we have. Don't let one weak link drag this entire thing down. So if there is the right offensive lineman there with how the board looks, again, like I can talk myself into drafting almost any position. We are leaving all options on the table, right? Drafting for need will continue. We'll have you continuing to draft for need in the future. And if you just take the best player available and you stick to your gut, right? I think that's how you build a championship team there, is just being disciplined enough to stick to what you believe in the talent and all the evaluations that you've done up until this point. So I'm not saying I'm not going to take a guard strictly because it's a need. I'm not saying I will take it because it's a need. We have to see how things unfold as the board falls to pick 24. Now looking on the defensive side of the ball, our front three, our inside three in Jonathan Allen, Harrison, Phillips, and Javon Hargrave. That is great, and we have great depth with Jalen Redmond, Taki Taimani, and Levi Drake Rodriguez. We could add another guy, strictly because of the age of all of these guys. But again, that is dependent on the board, but it's not a huge position of need. It would just be a luxury to have a rotation of those guys heading into the season. Grenard, Van Ginkel, Turner, we are set at the outside linebacker position, so I am not worried about that the slightest bit. And then Cashman and Pace. Now, I know that there has been talk in recent mock drafts about the Vikings potentially taking a linebacker. I don't think that that is out of the conversation, but I don't think it is a position that we should be investing high draft capital in. I would be shocked if the Vikings take a guy like Carson Schwessinger from UCLA or Demetrius Knight from South Carolina. Super talented players that I have round 2 grades on, but I would have a hard time seeing them invest a day 1 or day 2 pick in a guy who is going to play a rotational role when you can get legit day 1 starters in day 1 and day 2 of the draft. So, and then taking a look at this secondary, and this is the one that I think most people are talking about, but it's one that we're going to be cautious about drafting because, for one, safeties don't have a ton of value in terms of the first round. Like, you got to really stand out to be a guy to be taken in the first round. And spoiler alert, I have 3 safeties in this draft with first round grades, so it could be possible. But again, going to be cautious with the board. I cannot reiterate it enough, and I've already reiterated it a ton. And the cornerback position here. Now, not sure why Najee Thompson is listed as one of these starting cornerbacks here. It should be Mekhi Blackman, and you could even make an argument for Metellus, who's playing that hybrid nickel sub-linebacker role. But our starting 3 corners should be Mekhi Blackman, Isaiah Rodgers, and the Pro Bowl cornerback Byron Murphy, who got a big payday. So that secondary is definitely one where we're going to take a look at some of the spots, but with my draft philosophy, and look, this mock draft is not going to be, oh, what do I think the Vikings are going to do? No. This is me running the show here. All right, we're going to go with my big board here. We're going to go with what I think we should do. And in terms of trades, I'm going to try and do what I think is most fair. We're going to try and make the trades 50-50, so we're not taking advantage of the simulator too much. But let's stop dilly-dallying. We have 3 or 4 picks here, right, with pick 24, 97, 139, and 187. Let's get this thing started. We are not trading up. That is for damn sure. So we'll take a look at how the board falls. We kind of just got to hope that our guys are here. All right, here we go. So everything, oh, wow. Mason Graham at 3 would be a crazy shakeup for the draft, and Abdul Carter going at 6 would also be insane here. But just trying to see if there's anyone here that's like really out of the... Wow. Shedeur Sanders to the Seahawks, that would be pretty crazy too. Okay. So nothing too crazy in terms of where people are getting selected. I think everyone that we've seen could realistically go in the range that they were selected. Now, Malachi Starks is an interesting one here, and we're going to go in depth here in this mock draft here. This is not going to be your casual 5-minute mock draft and getting in and out. No, let's talk NFL draft here, okay? Malachi Starks, very intriguing player, and I think the thing that people liked the most about him, right, was the instincts that he was showing off in his freshman year and also his ability to play man coverage. Not every safety in the league has the ability to play man coverage. Malachi Starks can do it, and I think that's where there's a lot of value in him, but had tackling issues, was just a little bit more hesitant this year. And he's considered undersized for a safety as well, right? We can take a look at the measurables here. 6'1", 205. Not sure where that is coming from. It's a slightly below the 50th percentile in height and weight. To me, I think that's fine, but again, that is just the notion that's going around in the NFL right now. Okay, very interesting. See, there's no one right now, at least where we're picking and where this board looks like on PFF, where I'm like, we need to select this guy. Like, there is absolutely no way that we can trade back. We can definitely trade back from this spot. So who are the interested teams? Okay, the Detroit Lions. I am not trading with the division rival who just beat us out for the division last year. It's just not happening. And I wasn't a fan when Kwesi did it in his first draft, when we went all the way back to 32 and got Lewisine. Again, that entire draft process was an absolute disaster. But I think that's kind of just the rule of thumb that I believe in. Like, do not get involved with your division opponents, because if you're on the losing end of that trade, you just look stupid, right? I mean, anyway. So I don't mind going back to 38. 14 picks we drop back, but we're going to have to get quite a bit in return here. So obviously they want to trade up to 24 here. That would not be accepted. See, so this is something that's realistic here, right? We get the second, the third, and their fourth round pick for this 24th selection here. I think for 14 spots, I think that this could definitely work. You know, could we throw in a 7 right here? That makes it exactly 50, the way that I said I wanted this to work. So we would get a second, a third, a fourth, and a 7th round pick for the round 1 pick 24 selection here. And again, like I said, with the guys on the board, I'm not super like, hey, we got to make a pick here. Like I said, this is a draft for me at least where I would want quantity over quality. I'm a huge believer in, if your guy is there at the pick, just take him, right? Don't even gamble with the fact that, oh, he might be here if we trade back. Absolutely not. But in a draft like this, where we only have 4 picks and we can maneuver around the board to get more, I say, why not? Let's offer this trade right here to the Patriots. They do not accept it. Let's take out that 7th round pick. They will not take it as well. Okay. So now things get really interesting here. I think what we could do is we could move this one back to 144. Ah, man, that just doesn't make a ton of sense here. Thorn 187, 60% chance, 59. Let's try this. I mean, we have 3 more attempts, right? Boom. So there we go. We surrender 187 in this trade. A little negotiation had to be done. And we ended up just moving up 16 spots there. So not sure why they didn't take the first one, but that's the one that ends up being accepted. It was a 50-50 trade here, according to how they weigh their draft picks here on PFF. But we're going to be picking in day 2, so we'll sleep out round 1 here. They end up trading for Malachi Starks, and, you know, that's valid. I mean, Starks is a player that was getting a ton of hype early in the draft process, and, you know, after Eamon Worry had the combine that he had, he was starting to get the buzz from the safety position. So, and there goes Eamon Worry there at 29 here. So some of the players that we were talking about earlier, right, like a Gray Zabel, not going to be there if we trade back, but I feel a lot better about how many selections we have, and I don't think we're done yet, right? We have a 2nd rounder, 2 3rd rounders, a 4th, a 5th, and another 5th. So, okay, let's see who's on the board here. Now, Trey Amos is a guy that I have as with a 1st round grade. I think that this guy could immediately come in and solidify one of those cornerback spots. I think he would take over Mekhi Blackman's projected starting spot here. Benjamin Morrison, I know people love him, and you watch the tape, and he looks great, but the hip injury, right? I don't think we can mess around with that again. Now, I'm huge on the injuries and stuff like that. I'm overly critical of it in the evaluations as well. I just think if there's a guy who has a prominent injury or reoccurring injuries, you know, whether it's the same one or just different injuries all around the body, I don't want to be the guinea pig team to find out if it's going to work out for him or not. And we've seen hip injuries before with Andrew Booth coming into the draft process. I just feel like if we draft Benjamin Morrison, we're not learning a lesson from the last time we had a similar situation where a 1st round projected corner comes into the draft with a hip injury and he falls in the draft. Like, I don't want to be that team to experiment that. So Trey Amos is a guy that I really like. Another guy that I think could be a plug-in and play is Xavier Watts. Xavier Watts is a close number 2 on my big board here, right behind Nick Eamon-Wari. But I do think that Xavier Watts has a higher floor than him, but not as high of a ceiling. But if this player is here at 38, oh man, it's going to be hard for me to pass up on him. And there's a lot of good players. Tyleik Williams is another guy who I have with a round 1 grade. Probably the best run-stopping defensive tackle in this middle part of the draft. Maxwell Harrison, this is another guy who I think gets a little bit of hype, and I don't really see it. I understand the makeup speed is insane, but I think that this is primarily a zone coverage corner on a team that wants to play man-to-man, so I just don't see that being a fit. And Siobhan Revel, another guy that I think is getting a lot of hype, and deservingly so, but the injuries is something that concern me coming off of what I believe is an ACL injury. A lot of good players here. Donovan Jackson, too, I think would be great. Swing tackle, you could have him play tackle while Darrisaw's out and move him back into guard where he's projected to play. I like the players that are here, and I think we have enough mid-round picks here. I'm going to go with Xavier Watts here. I have Xavier Watts as a top 15 player in this entire draft. And he's not getting talked about enough because of guys like Malachi Starks and Nick Eamon-Wari who have kind of just stolen the show. Xavier Watts is absolutely fantastic. I mean, you talk about a guy who is constantly getting his hands on the ball. 15.6% force incompletion rate. Very good in run defense as well, and so versatile, right? You take a look at his snap count here in 2024, 465 snaps as a deep safety, which is exactly what we're looking for. We're looking for a free safety that can that is rangy and can cover the field, right? That's kind of what they were looking for out of Lewis Cine, but also at the same time did have versatility to go down into the box, right? So we're not necessarily looking for a strong safety here because we have that in Harrison Smith. But I'm not huge on Theo Jackson being the starter here for our team. So I'm going to go here with Xavier Watts. I mean, just so good instinctually. Is a great tackler. Does a great job finding the football. Like, I can't say enough good things about Xavier Watts. I'm surprised he's not getting talked about more. But this would be an instant day 1 starter. Highly intelligent player here for the Vikings. I am so happy with this pick, right? I got a top 15 player, at least on my board. Now, am I an expert? I am far from it. But when I watch him play, I'm like, damn. I mean, this guy just makes play after play after play. Now, Kevin Winston's here, but the reason why he's falling, despite being ranked 29, I don't know how that is the case. But, had a fantastic 2023. But, again, I think not a good showing from the few games that he did have, and again, it's a very small sample size because he got hurt in 2024. But okay, Xavier Watts, that's a fantastic pick. Dylan Sampson, this is an interesting one here, right? Because we talked about like we could snag a running back here, and there wouldn't be anything wrong with that. This guy is super explosive, really like Dylan Sampson's game. Makuba's another guy that I like who we doubled down on safety. I wouldn't want to. Tate Ratledge, man. I mean, that would complete the offensive line. Kyle Williams too. Great separator. Ooh, a lot of good options here. I think Sampson's good, but does he separate himself enough from these running backs that are considered, around in talent below him? I don't think the gap is enough for me to select Sampson here. And Ratledge, I mean, this guy is, a 2-time All-American, I believe? I mean, this guy, 320. That's what we want. We want maulers, man. And this guy's pretty athletic too, right? Only gave up 2 sacks in his entire career at Georgia. Like, this guy is the real deal. Dealt with some injuries last year. Missed a few games, as you can see here. Played 10. I might go Tate Ratledge here, guys. I mean, this would solidify the offensive line. Yeah, he's not a left guard, but we'll move him around. He'll be fine. He's an All-American playing at Georgia. Okay. I think I talked myself into that one. Tate Ratledge is the selection here. So we get a starting safety and we get a starting guard. I have no complaints right now. Makuba's still here. Now this, even Williams, wow, like this is great value. And I just don't, oh wow, can we really pass it up? Now I think the fact that we got Xavier Watts, and Xavier Watts, I love Xavier Watts. I think you guys understand that. And hey, last time we took a Notre Dame, I know I don't have to justify myself, but last time we took a Notre Dame safety, I mean, yeah, worked out pretty well. He's still on the team. But Makuba here, I mean, you have to at least consider it, right? Because that's another fantastic player, right? Whether he was at Clemson or at Texas, he produced. Okay. But Kyle Williams too, like I think Kyle Williams could step in and be the number 3 receiver day 1. And at least compete for it. Like Rondale Moore, super talented player, right? Went high in his respective draft for a reason. Naylor has shown flashes as well, but oh man. And Williams is a guy that I really like. I mean, I understand, right? You kind of have more of a spread offense there in Washington State, and guys are allowed more one-on-one opportunities, but when you just watch him against press coverage, I mean, this guy is silky smooth and does really good at the contested catch as well, is very good after the catch. And I think the reason why he's still down here is because he's slightly undersized, right? And it's not by a lot. 6 feet, 186. Like, you're going to worry about press coverage because of his weight, and that's what I'm referring to by his size, but he seems to be just all right. So even Harold Fannin, that would be an interesting one. I think that's a guy that we could potentially get at 106. Okay. Very interesting. I love Makuba, though. Oh, man. And Makuba, I mean, we could definitely get him, too, because Harrison Smith, this could be his last year. I mean, we thought he was going to retire after this season, right? So we would need a safety the next year. I'm going to go with Kyle Williams here. The Vikings are looking for another receiver, but again, we're banking on Jalen Naylor, who just hasn't shown enough after 3 years on the team, and Rondale Moore, who is also coming off of an ACL injury. It was an ACL and Achilles injury, right? Either way, I like what Kyle Williams has to offer for this team, and it's just such an intriguing player there at round 3, pick 97. I don't think you can pass up on him. And Makuba keeps slipping. So in this mock draft, I don't know if he did something, but look, if Makuba's there at 139, I think we're taking him, guys. But Harold Fannin here. So when I think about the tight end position, I mean, this is an all-around player. The tight end should be able to be as effective in the receiving game as he is as a blocker. And I am worried about Fannin's ability to block because he's 230. Wasn't a bad blocker in college. I mean, you look at the grade here, 75.2. It's going to be hard to find a tight end that had a grade that high. But at 230, right? Is he going to get bullied by, even some of the undersized edge rushers of the world, the Hassan Reddicks, the Brian Burns? Like, obviously you don't want to put that guy in an island, but is he going to do enough to fend them off in the run game? I don't know. That's where you worry about him, but there are already 2 very, very good tight ends on this team, and he would be the third option. Maybe not the third receiving option in that room, but at least the third guy on the field, if that makes sense. Because in blocking situations, they're going to bring out Josh Oliver. But Harold Fannin, I mean, this is just such an intriguing player. I mean, and look, I do not like but look at the competition he's going up against. We have seen so many players, whether it's from these Group of 5 conferences or these FCS schools, like, they have a chance to pan out. Just because they play against lesser competition and they're not in the Power 5 doesn't mean that they won't work out. The chances of them, yes, might be a little bit lower, but I mean, watch the tape. Look at the production. Harold Fannin, I mean, was doing things similar to Tyler Warren. Not to that extent, but this is a guy that they trusted to give jet sweeps to, right? And this is a guy that they constantly found the football. They were just constantly giving it to him, and he was catching it. and had excellent games against Penn State and Texas A&M. Like, this guy's not a fluke. Week in and week out, this guy was one of the best players in college football. I'm going Harold Fannin here. We need a third tight end, and if we can get Harold Fannin in round 4, absolute steal in my opinion. Again, hopefully he can put on some size, sustain that weight, and still be a proficient blocker. If he can just turn his game around like that and just be as well-rounded as you think he can be, I mean, that could be your potential tight end 1 of the future as well. But again, his ability to block is going to be the biggest question mark heading into this draft, and the reason why he's not going higher than people think. Is round 4 a realistic spot? I think so. Could I see him going as early as round 3 as well? Absolutely. So the way that our draft looks so far, I think we got impact players at every single position. Again, Watts is a starter. Ratledge is a starter. Kyle Williams will get a fair opportunity to compete for that third wide receiving job. And Harold Fannin Jr. could ultimately be the second receiving option in the tight end room as well, and potentially the tight end of the future. So we're sitting here now at pick 139. Torrey Horton is a guy that I really like. I don't think we double down at receiver at this point, but that's another guy where I think he would have gone a lot higher had he not dealt with injury this year. But Horton's a super smooth football player. I got to watch him play live. Great player, just great player. I believe he's from Canada too. He's from California. Okay, thinking of someone else. Regardless, great football player, which I don't know why I brought that up. It wasn't even relevant anyway. Running back here. So if I'm not mistaken, the Vikings brought in Brashard Smith from SMU and Kalel Mullings from Michigan on top 30 visits. Etienne's a solid player, and I think when you watch Georgia games, I think he goes underappreciated because he did take on a lot of those just hard-nosed runs that didn't go for a ton, but helped this team move the football. Like, I don't know. It's interesting here. Smith is another good one. A big reason why SMU had the success they had this season. And Kalel Mullings, they love to run the damn football. And he kept that tradition going for Michigan this year. And you would bring him back with J.J. McCarthy. So running back looks like the position of intrigue right now. Ty Robinson is also an interesting one. I think he goes a lot higher than this. Just had a phenomenal combine. Had really good games as well this season, right? 6 sacks, 25 hurries. Like, that could be a guy as well. So depending on how far we have to trade back, because there's a couple of names that I like. Even Tyler Shuck, like, that's a guy that I think if he's your backup quarterback, that's great. Jack Kaiser's another good one. Okay, so there's a lot of names that I still like on this board. Now, at a minimum, I would like to get at least our 7 picks in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's just accumulate one more. 156, that doesn't sound too bad, honestly. Let's see what we can get here. Again, I want to try and make this as fair as possible. So let's see. Tampa Bay here. Will they do that? 47. That's close. Let's see. Yeah. So we can do this one. I don't mind this one. We drop back 18 spots. Also acquire a 7th round pick and get a 6th round selection for next year as well. 47%. It's probably as close as we're going to get this stage in the draft. So we trade back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hopefully some of those players that I just talked about are still here. There's Etienne, still here. Quincy Riley would have been a great pick. Oh, the Falcons forfeited this pick. 49ers as well. Whoa, what's going on here? Okay, so Etienne's still on the board, and some of those other running backs that we talked about I just saw went before him, but Etienne, I think at this stage of the draft, I think would be great value here in round 5. Ty Robinson as well. Okay, so I think because of how this thing is valued, and this is interesting because Ty Robinson's a great player too. But Etienne, like I said, like this could potentially be like a starting running back in the future. PFF thinks very highly of him as a zone rusher, which is exactly what the Vikings are going to be looking for here. Okay, We're going to go with Trevor Etienne here. And again, as it mentioned in that little blurb as well, his brother, Travis Etienne, is in the league. And Ty Robinson is still here. Tyler Shuck is still here. I wonder if we can get both. Let's try and finesse our way around this draft here. 20% chance there. I mean, we could try to do this and throw in that. So we end up moving out of the 7th round, right, to acquire 2 6th round picks. Ah, man. See, this is where it gets tricky here because if we trade back, we could get both, but we could also miss out on both. But if I stick here, at least we get one. I think I'm going to just... but then we get a higher pick as well, right? This is a tough one, guys. And yeah, we're not trading back with the Dolphins here. This is a real tough one. I wonder if we can... Let's try to do this, but instead of giving one of these, maybe we give the 7th or 6th. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. They really value that 6th round pick next year. Unless we can just do a pick swap. No. They're not a huge fan of that. They really value those picks for next year for some reason. You know what? I think I'm going to just stick and pick here, and we'll just see what we can get at a 235. I have a feeling that the Vikings are going to sign a quarterback. I think it would be foolish of them to go in with as much inexperience as they would have if they like invest a relatively high pick. And when I'm talking high pick, I mean like a 4th round pick, a day 3 pick. If they invest a high day 3 pick, like round 4 in a quarterback, like, I mean, how many snaps are you getting in the NFL with your room heading into week 1? Like that's what's concerning to me. So right now we're going to go with Ty Robinson here in the 5th round. And if there is a quarterback here that we really, really like in the 7th round, we'll go for it. But if not, I feel better just trying to take a swing at a potential player that could be a rotational player, a special teams contributor, rather than trying to take a guy here in the 7th round that, you know, you're trying to develop into your future franchise backup quarterback. Is that even a term? But anyway, so we can take a look at the quarterbacks here. Like Graham Mertz, I don't really like. Hennigan, like, no disrespect, but I don't really like that guy's demeanor. Andrew Armstrong. I mean, this dude's a beast. But the Vikings seem to do a good job of finding like free agent wide receivers after the draft. But I like Andrew Armstrong. This guy's good. And PFF seems to like him too, but big time numbers, right? 78 receptions for 1,140 yards. I like Armstrong. He's solid. Let's see. Jimmy Horn's an interesting one. LaJohntay Webster, CJ Dupree, like, these are names that we've heard time and time and again because they're just playing on the primetime stage. Jordan Hancock's an interesting one here. Now, one position that you guys might be like, hey, why haven't we gotten a corner yet? You know, the way that the board fell, I didn't think that there was anything presented to us that I was like, okay, like, we should definitely take this player over someone that we already took. And the thing is, too, is like Mekhi Blackmon. I honestly like Mekhi Blackmon. Okay, I'm not saying he's going to just lock it down this year. And I understand he's coming off of an ACL injury, too. But we have some dudes. Like, I think Nudie McGlothern, like, that's a guy that I think could get some playing time and be pretty solid as well. I just wasn't seeing anything on the board where I was like, yeah, you know, the cornerback, we need to take this guy here. I think we have future starters at almost every pick that we've had so far. Is that delusional? Yeah, most likely. But I'm happy about how this draft has turned out so far. That's kind of what I'm saying. We can look at the cornerback position here. Justin Wally's a guy that they just added onto the board. And you can tell because his ADP is non-existent. Keep him here in Minnesota and address that cornerback position. It's a 7th round pick. I understand. But every pick matters, guys. It really does. Linebacker we could look at too. I think I'm going to go with the hometown guy here. Even if he's not like from Minnesota. we're going to go Justin Wally here at cornerback to round off this draft. And if you couldn't tell, guys, I'm pretty happy about this, how this went. I mean, not all mock drafts go like this, but if our draft goes like this in real life, boy, would I be excited for what is to come. This thing is taking a really long time to grade, and they would have liked Dylan Sampson. That's their one suggestion. Not a huge fan of the Tate Ratledge pick, but we got an A- overall draft grade here. So summarizing what happened here, we trade back, we acquire pick 38, 69, 106, and 171 for pick 24 and 187. So breaking that down into the rounds, we got picks in round 2, 3, 4, and 5 for picks 1 and 6 on our end. And we traded back and ended up getting Xavier Watts. And like, I have a ton of good things to say about this guy. If I'm not mistaken, was also a team captain at Notre Dame as well. Like, this guy has been good over the course of his college career, and I expect nothing less in the NFL. Xavier Watts is an absolute dog and will be a day one starter for us. Another day one starter for us, I think for sure, would be Tate Ratledge, who would start at left guard, but has taken all of his snaps in college at the right guard position. Again, an all-American caliber guard, and you want to talk about just completing the offensive line, right? If we go from left to right, Darrisaw, Ratledge, Kelly, Fries, Darrisaw. We might have the best O-line in the league if everyone plays like we expect them to, right? It's going to take time for some of them to gel, but I think the fact that Kelly and Fries have already played with each other for a couple of years now, and Ratledge is coming in with as much experience in the SEC at a high level, like, McCarthy's protected. Kyle Williams gives us an insurance policy if those guys don't end up panning out, and I'm talking about Naylor and Moore. But if he ends up reaching his potential, oh boy, we got another receiver, guys. Harold Fannin as well. That's another guy, right? If he can just shore up his blocking and prove to people that his size is not going to be an issue and he can be the receiving threat that he has been over the course of his career, Fannin's going to be an absolute beast. Trevor Etienne, this is a guy that you're banking on the traits, right? Wasn't the most productive running back in this class. He was far from it. Just had a lot of short runs in his career as well. But I think that this guy's a grinder. This guy has what it takes. He has the skill set. Is a good receiving threat from the backfield as well. Trevor Etienne, I think, is just great value there in round 5. Then we decided to trade back, and that ended up being a good move on our part because we ended up getting Ty Robinson with the selection 18 picks later. We also acquired a 7th round pick and a 6th round pick in next year's draft, which Kwesi's going to use up those draft picks. Like, he's going to go trade for somebody with those 6th round picks, and you know how that goes. So give ourselves some more ammunition heading into the 2025 season. But Ty Robinson, I think, with his production, right, the 6 sacks, the 11 hits, and the 25 hurries, to go along with the combine that he had, just a super explosive player. I think Ty Robinson at round 5 would be a great rotational piece that the Vikings could be looking for in that interior of the defensive line. And then Justin Wally there as a cornerback could just end up being a special teams player. But even in round 7, like, that's going to be a big-time contributor, right? Because those guys are as equally as important as everyone else on the field because, you know, man, when special teams sells, I mean, guys, we know how that works, man. It's devastating. So those guys need to be at the top of their game as well. They have a huge influence on the game. But that is our 7-round mock draft here for the Minnesota Vikings. I know it was kind of a lengthy video, but I was giving my draft analysis on a lot of these prospects. We went over the roster. We just did a full video here on everything Minnesota Vikings related to this NFL draft. But the way that this went, I just feel like we addressed almost every position of need, and we got a handful of potential starters on this team from this draft, in a draft where we entered with only 4 draft selections. So if this is how the NFL draft goes, which is highly unlikely, well, you know what? I should have some faith. But it's highly unlikely with Kwesi's track record. I would be pretty happy about this. Should I be the general manager? Absolutely not. But if I look back at this mock draft and a lot of these players end up hitting, then maybe I might reconsider that answer. But until then, Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoy Minnesota Vikings content just like this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and until then, I will see you guys all later. Peace.